Welcome to the RideShare Guy podcast, where you will learn about the rideshare and mobility industry straight from Harry Campbell, who's got over 5 years experience covering the industry and has talked to thousands of drivers. There's no better place to stay up to date, entertained, and educated. So let's dive in.
All right. So Herb Coakley is the founder and CEO of Courial, a last mile courier and errand service for everything that's empowering gig drivers with a people first approach to technology while making it easier for them to have access to electrified vehicles. Herb is the son of Caribbean immigrants, lifelong entrepreneurs, and gig workers. He's a two-time founder, former physicist, and film producer, and has studied at Howard University, UCLA, and Columbia University. Most interestingly, though, Herb is a former gig economy driver with over 20,000 completed gigs driving for Uber, Lyft, Doordash, Postmates, Caviar, and Grubhub, sometimes doing all gigs or some of these gigs at the exact same time. So, Herb, how are you doing today?
Good, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Harry.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. And, this is your second time coming on the RideShare Guy podcast. And I feel like we've had a few returning champions on the podcast, but it's pretty rare that someone comes back on the podcast to talk about a new company. And so I think you might be the first person to come on the podcast twice, but talking about two different companies that you founded. So congrats on that, if that is indeed an award.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, let's start. Actually, I just looked it up right now. You actually came on the podcast 5 years ago to talk about Mystro, which was, I think, still today, one of my favorite ideas and companies in the gig economy space, which allowed drivers to multi-app, to drive for Uber and Lyft at the same time. So, I would love to know sort of like, kind of what's been going on. Feel free to touch on your experience at Mystro and your gig economy and sort of what's brought you to this point with Courial, because you've got an extensive history, not only working in the gig economy, but now founding companies in the gig economy too.
Yeah,
You just
thanks.
can't get enough gig economy, or what's the deal?
Well, I mean, I basically fell into technology,
Yeah,
'cause, I was a filmmaker before, and technically still am a filmmaker.
we're making a film right now.
And just had a rough go of it, and ended up needing to take a step back, and became an Uber driver, Lyft driver.
Yeah,
You kind of know the story, and then that led me to creating the first company, Mystro, which forced me to move to San Francisco, and then
hmm
I kept talking to my passengers about it, and anyone who would listen, and that it took off from there. So I didn't know what I was doing the first time around. Like, I
yeah,
was literally a filmmaker who just was driving Uber to kind of pass time and figure out what my next move was,
yeah,
and end up creating this really cool company for drivers that really took off.
yeah.
And but as far as just understanding how to run a company and all that stuff, like
Hmm.
it was a huge learning curve. So
Yeah,
but in the process, I really got a good sense of the space, the gig economy space, and how it landed on the people I feel that was the most important aspect of gig economy was the
yeah,
workers. And just from driving myself, and and interacting with other gig workers, while we're waiting for orders and stuff like that, and hearing complaints. I mean, it was really the same things over and over. I saw an opportunity to maybe create something a little bit a little bit better, a little bit more um, you know, where we kind of give the upper hand to the workers.
yeah.
And so I started knocking that idea around shortly after I left the first company, and then you know, decided to start driving again, but
Yeah.
this time just to learn more about like what this company would look like. So,
hmm
I obviously had to drive and study, what the market was like, what the
So you
technology was
left
like.
Maestro, you started delivering and doing some actual delivery orders, sort of with the inkling, it sounds like that, hey, maybe I might start a company in the courier or the last mile delivery space. And about what year was this?
So this was in 29, let me see. This is probably like late 2018.
Okay.
early 2019, I
So
think,
you
is
were
when
kind
I.
of ahead of the curve, because I'm sure we'll talk about it, but obviously the pandemic hit in early 2020 and sort of accelerated, a lot of this last mile delivery happenings, right? But so I guess rewind. So you're in 2018, 2019, delivering a bit, and this is where you were kind of testing the idea for Courial or getting some feedback and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. This was I was sort of doing like just a lot of
Hmm.
research, um, and how it would work, what it would look like, just talking to customers, talking to drivers, getting a sense of if it's something that people actually wanted to see in the space, and that's kind of sort of that's where I started to kind of form what it would look like, what it would be, and
Got it.
how it would be different. And then I the thing that was different this time around is I didn't have the resources to like bring on, like a developer and all this stuff.
Hmm.
So this time around, I taught myself how to code and how to
Oh,
design.
wow.
So a big chunk of that time while I was, kind of like doing the research, I was sort of like learning how to code and how to design, and I was reading a lot of books, a lot of videos, and so then I started putting together the basic foundation for what the app would look like, what it would feel like, and what the functionality would be like.
Hmm.
And then once I got that, then I really started to test it out on drivers. Like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Like, would
Yeah.
this be cool? What kind of things would you guys want to see? And so then that started helping me kind of put together like, what
Very
the
cool.
the, com- the company would be. Yeah.
So, one thing that really resonates with your story is that, you were a gig driver. I mean, literally, you founded two companies in the gig economy, which I think is quite impressive. And I mean, I get so many drivers, as you probably do yourself, they come to you with an idea, or they want to change this, or they see the problems. Like, there's no one better, I think, than the actual people working in the gig economy to identify the problems. But frankly, they might be the worst people to solve them because, like you said, you didn't know what you're doing. You didn't know how to run a
Yeah.
business, right? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like a different set of skills. You didn't know how to code, you didn't know how to that. And so I love that you taught yourself. Was there any one takeaway that you had from Mystro? Like, would you tell something to other aspiring gig workers that want to start their own business, or like, was there a takeaway for you, or do you have advice? Because I'm sure people ask you, but like, kind of now having kind of gone through that a couple times, what do you think about like that transition from gig worker to starting a company, even, for example, serving gig workers in some fashion?
Yeah. I think definitely. Well, the thing that you have as a gig worker is sort of understanding, a really
Hmm.
good understanding of you know the
What the
need,
problems are. Yeah.
what the problems are, so the need for the product, right? But what you would need to do is then obviously either connect with people who have the additional skills, like like
Hmm.
technology skills, business marketing skills, business development skills, operations and stuff like that. Those things you would need to
Yeah.
find partners that are really solid in those areas, or if you don't, at least learn enough about it so you could kind
Yeah.
of get it started, and then you can bring people in to help you build it.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I mean, I feel like, it's very easy to identify a problem. I've hired lots of people, and, people always come to me with issues or problems. Like, I don't want another problem. I want a solution. Right. So I kind of like that. It sounds like your game plan. It's like gig workers are great for identifying these problems, seeing these business opportunities, but you really have to have some skill where you can translate that into a business, or you need to learn some skill like coding or design. Or number three, I like this too. You need to connect with right people and convince them to work with you who have skills. So it sounds like for Courial, you learned, you had some skills, you made some mistakes with Mystro, and then you learned from that, and then you learned some new skills. And so I'd love to dig into Courial now. Tell us about it. How does it work? How's it different from other delivery platforms? If someone asks you about Courial on the street, what do you tell them? What's the pitch?
Yeah, so it's essentially a courier service, courier and errand service for everything, right?
Cool.
It does a lot of what some of the other companies in the space do, but it just sort of does it all in one
Mm,
platform. So it's kind of like having an anything app, really like an
hmm.
app, and instead of having an app for food, an app for the groceries, and an app for like errands and
Yeah.
stuff like that, or app for picking up furniture, is literally like an app that does it all. And
Mm,
my thinking was the technology that's necessary to make all these things possible is pretty much the same,
yeah.
right? The people, the workers, the gig workers who do this type of work, all the same people. The
Hmm.
same people who deliver for Amazon deliver for Doordash. The
Yeah.
same people who deliver for Uber Eats deliver for for Grubhub, right? So so my thinking was it's the same workforce. The technology is the same.
Hmm.
So then it makes sense to have it all in one place, right? Like for the consumer, it's much easier to be able to go to one app and say, look, I need some furniture delivered, or
Yeah.
I need a sandwich delivered, or I need to send a friend of mine a bottle of wine, or I need to have someone pick up my keys I left somewhere,
Yeah.
like, or I need someone to grab a sandwich, then get my laundry, then
Hmm.
bring it to me, and then pick up my mail. Like,
Yeah.
like you need right now before Courial, you would need like 3 or 4 apps to get it all
Yeah.
done, right? But with Courial, you can have all of that done in one place,
Yeah.
right? So that's as far as the product itself. That was really what was exciting about it, and
Hmm.
and that came out of just interviewing a lot of drivers. Like, they drivers were telling me like we really hate delivering food. It stinks up our cars. Like
Yeah.
it's like the redundancy of it is just annoying. The monotony of it is just annoying.
Mm.
And and they like the idea of being able to have a sort of diverse work. Like a diverse opportunity throughout the day to do
Yeah.
different things. Like maybe deliver a chair, or they'll maybe go
Hmm.
drop off a sandwich, or
Yeah.
maybe pick up a bottle of wine. Like do
That's
someone
interesting.
drop someone's mail. So they like the idea of being able to do a lot of different things throughout the day. So
Because it's
that was
sort
one of
of
the
all
reasons.
the same job, right? You're taking something from point A to point B, sometimes to point C. But like you said, right? Like that's probably like the number one complaint about food is that it stinks up your car, right? But then there's also just the variety, right? Like, hey, you meet someone new, or you pick something up, or you have to get out of,
Yes,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? So it's just sort of,
yeah.
I guess, like mixing. You're doing this a pretty similar job, in my opinion, but you're mixing it up a little. Were you hearing from drivers that they were kind of bored with food delivery,
Oh
or
yeah.
okay,
Absolutely, absolutely. They were bored with it. They did it because it was something they paid, but
reliable? Yeah,
it's reliable. It's obviously people need food, so there's a lot of opportunities there.
yeah.
But they like the idea of just having something that really mixed up their days. Like
Hmm.
made the workday more interesting by doing different things,
Yeah.
interacting with different types of businesses throughout the day. That's one thing they like. So that's one thing we wanted to
Well,
do.
and I guess too, like without kind of straying too far, right? Like if you're a delivery driver, you kind of probably like doing items and food and things like that, but like you may not want to cross over into transporting people because that's like a whole different ball game, right? And I feel like there's this sense a lot of people like, oh, you can go ride share in the morning and drive people, and you can do food at lunch. I haven't really found that. I feel like a lot of people they kind of like either like food delivery or they like delivering things or they like doing people, and there isn't actually like they might switch, but they're going to stay. Like during the pandemic, a lot of rideshare drivers switched to food delivery, and they're like, "Oh shit, this is a lot easier. I don't have a passenger in
Yeah,
my backseat. I don't
yeah,
have someone
yeah.
puking. I don't have someone rating me." They there were actually a lot of positives. So, did you find that too with your drivers that they kind of do they hop
Absolutely.
back and forth, or they kind of like that like
No,
delivery?
no,
Hmm.
absolutely. I found that, and I think this is something that I think Uber, this is why Uber kind of think started Uber Eats, because they thought, well, they're already in the car, they have a car, they live with
Right.
people, maybe they live with food as well. But what I find is most gig workers that deliver people like delivering people,
Yeah.
and they don't want to deliver food,
Hmm.
or anything else, matter of fact. And most gig workers who deliver things particularly don't want to deliver people.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a few that kind of go back and forth just because it's a way to make money. But for the
Hmm.
most part, I find that the guys who like delivering things are a different group of drivers, and then the ones who like to deliver people. So with Courial, we specifically decided to stay away from delivering people,
Yeah.
or transporting people.
Got it. But you,
Yeah.
like you said, you do deliver, anything and everything. So what are some of your most popular categories or items? Are you guys doing food delivery? Or are you guys doing, chairs or computers? Or what are sort of like the most popular categories that have emerged, both on the sort of partner and customer side, but also, like what drivers like delivering? I'd be curious too.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So the idea was to stay away from food as much as
Hmm.
possible, right? Like to sort of lean into all the other aspects of delivery space.
Yeah.
But we, the need for food delivery is still it's still so high, and the
Hmm.
market is still not, the needs are not really being met in the marketplace
Hmm.
currently, even with all the different platforms out there. So we actually are getting a lot of inbound for companies that want to use our service to deliver things in the food space.
Hmm.
Our biggest client right now is actually a company that deliver corporate lunches, a company called Easy Cater,
Oh,
and
cool.
uh, and um, so we do a lot of that. We also deliver meal kits. We have a couple of companies that deliver stuff to like to ghost kitchens. So
Hmm.
we'll deliver like frozen goods. We'll pick up at airports and then take them to
Got
different
it.
food kitchens all over the country. It's really all over the place. We've done furniture, um, you know, pharmaceuticals, medical supplies. We had an aerospace company that wanted us to deliver like aeronautics parts and
Hmm.
stuff like that. We've delivered adult products, it's just a large array of things.
Really?
It's
Well,
really all over the place. Yeah.
yeah. And, I guess the two things that sort of stand out to me is that you said that you stay away from food, but Easy Cater, for example, I'm on their website. This is corporate catering. I mean, this isn't, a $6 burrito that's, being delivered for $4. This is, I assume, like hundreds of dollars or maybe thousands of dollars worth of food. And it's also, less time sensitive. It's probably planned more in advance, right? No one places like a huge order 5 minutes or, an hour before they need it. And then, it can kind of
Right. Right.
arrive and, it's a little bit more like shelf stable, right? It's not like a ton of hot steaming food that has to be open usually, for like catering type events. So I guess like it actually is taking some of the best elements. Like I'm not a big fan of just delivering, like hiring a human to pick up food. And like, I think that's pretty tough business from like a unit economics. But for you guys, you're sort of taking the best of both worlds. You're like kind of leaning into that, wave of food delivery, but then like much higher average order values, less time sensitive. And also just like, kind of like one client B2B, right? So I imagine that like those types of verticals are pretty, like a good fit for a service like yours.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's actually helped us sort of defined our business model bit
Hmm.
as we start to adjust to these clients. And what we find is that the reason that a lot of these companies were coming to us is they wanted a more curated experience for
Hmm.
their delivery. They wanted to be able to have more access to the drivers, more instant
Hmm.
access to the drivers, more access to the company. And that was one of the things that we were able to do with Courial. So we're the only company that actually has like a live dispatch center with
Cool.
actual, workers that talk to the drivers and talk to the customers all day long.
Hmm.
And the other companies that we're getting on the B2B side, this is something that they really wanted. Like the reason they wanted to, stop using some of the market leaders and give us a shot was because we were able to give that curated experience. And the thing
Yeah.
about Courier too is we're not cheaper than
Hmm.
like the other guys, right? We're actually a little bit more expensive. But I think it seems because of the type of service we offer, the fact that it's
Yeah.
curated, the fact that they have a much better relationship with the courier, where they feel almost like it's their personal courier, they're willing to pay a premium for that. So
Hmm.
we've been able to charge the consumers more, charge the businesses more, and then also, which allows us to pay our drivers more.
Yeah.
So we might be, I would say we're probably not the most, like, I mean, as far as what the percentage the drivers keep from the delivery
Hmm.
economics compared to other platforms, we're probably, either the most or maybe one of the top three or four.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, right? Because if you were another company doing food delivery and competing with DoorDash and Uber Eats, right, it's going to be hard to say, like I'm always skeptical of companies that say, hey, we're going to do the exact same model and just pay our drivers more. And I think, well, where's the money going to come from? You have to have
Yeah.
some underlying economics, right? In this case, it's much bigger orders, right? They're willing to pay more because they get a higher quality driver, right? And so, and then, some of the other categories you listed off, right? Like aeronautical parts, pharmaceutical, adult, like those all sound pretty expensive to me too, right? And so this is one thing, we've seen like weed delivery in California is like a lot of drivers tell us, on $100 order, they get like a $50 tip or a $25 tip, or just the delivery fee can be a lot higher. It can be like a 5% of $100 order is $5 versus, on a $10 burrito, $5 delivery fee is 50%, right? And so I think I
Mhm.
like the two combinations of like, higher volume food delivery and then just like higher average order value items, right? So I think you guys have some interesting verticals and some like a good value proposition to your partners. I'd love to dig into the driver experience. You kind of already answered the number one question I had, is how much drivers can make. So I'd love to know, what it's like to drive for Courier. And of course, the most important question is how much can drivers make with Courier?
Yeah. So on average, our drivers, right now it's about $30 an hour on
Okay.
average. And the way, and we keep the economics really simple. Like we don't make it complicated. Like, like this, that was one of the things that used to frustrate me when I was a gig
Hmm.
worker. There's all the different things, like fee for this, a fee for
Mm,
that,
yeah.
a tax here, a tax there. We make it simple. We like, if 80-20 split, there's nothing to figure out. Is they get
Hmm.
$100, they keep 80, and we
Oh,
take
cool.
20. Like we keep it really simple. But I think what's really interesting about it, this is something we've just developed over the last year. We've noticed over the last year is that our clients tend to tip a lot more,
Hmm.
um, just because they're just happier. They're just
Yeah.
like they're happier with the service. They love the fact that they feel like they have a relationship with the courier now. Like, as opposed to, with the market leaders, you're like, oh, it's just some guy that shows up,
Yeah.
delivering food. Sometimes you don't even know who it is really. It's just a
Hmm.
person that you'll get the name like later on as they get closer to your delivery. But with Courial, as soon as it's a sign, you're engaged with the driver, so you
Yeah.
feel like you have much more relationship. So they tend to tip a lot more.
Hmm.
Most of our orders, I mean, they tip a lot. So
Yeah.
the combination of the tip and just the fact that our order values are a little bit higher, our drivers tend to stay around $30 or more. I mean, sometimes it's much higher. We had one order recently. I saw someone just wanted somebody to move. I guess there was a piece of furniture that was blocking like their doorway or something.
Hmm.
They just wanted somebody to move it. And the first time they tried to use Courier, they couldn't get a Courier. So then they literally jacked up the tip to like 3 times the order value. So like
Yeah.
the order value was like $20 or something like that. And then they added a tip of like $80 or something like that. And then, of course
Cool.
so that's the cool thing about it. It's like the consumer and the Courier, they both can kind of like adjust, what they're willing
Yeah.
to do. Like the consumer can say, okay, you know what, I really need someone to deal with this, so they could just add more tip or add, to the
Yeah.
order, and then they'll get more Couriers who are willing to come do it.
Nice. I like that. So $30 an hour sounds pretty good. Does that vary depending on the cities? I assume some cities might be busier than others. And then also, are there peak times where these orders are coming in? Or, so I like, how does the pay vary by city? And also, I guess, like, how busy should couriers expect to be with the service?
Yeah, so we're definitely much busier in certain markets than others, and that's just a byproduct of
Are
us
you
being
guys live
small.
nationwide, or how many
Yeah,
cities?
yeah. We're literally like we have drivers in every major city,
Oh, wow.
but we don't have a ton of business everywhere. Like so there's an on-demand side and then there's the
Hmm.
B2B side, right? So because we're still growing and we're not a venture-backed company, we're pretty much bootstrapped and some friends and family fundraising, and then
Hmm.
we're obviously a part of an accelerator, a climate tech accelerator, Elemental. So we got some funding from there. So because of that, we're not in as we're not like everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
we're in about 10 markets where we're pretty strong, and then a lot of the other markets, it's tougher on the on-demand side, right? Because like if somebody in like Phoenix decides they want us to like
Yeah.
pick up something for them, we may not have enough drivers in that market. But in the
Gotcha.
big markets like LA, San Francisco, New York, Atlanta, like Dallas, Houston, in these markets, San Diego, we have those markets, our
Cool.
Coreals do pretty well and stay pretty busy.
Got it. So in the bigger cities, they can stay busy. In some of the smaller ones where there's less on demand, sort of might your mileage may vary, but sounds like, well, one of the reasons why I want to have you on is sign up a few more Courier drivers, so we might be able to improve that in the future. So yeah, I also like, the sort of 80-20 split, that resonates for sure, right? Just kind of keeping the pay simple. That's obviously one thing that drivers complain about, especially driving Uber and Lyft. And, you mentioned all the fees. Like, I feel like that's gotten worse. Like the receipts are like more complicated than ever.
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
sounds like you guys
yeah.
have done a pretty good job building in driver friendly features. And then I guess the important, right? Because you could sort of have the most driver friendly company in the world, but you do need to keep them busy, right? So how do you think about your drivers? Like, do you want to keep them busy? Do you want them only with Courier? Are you okay, with them driving other services? I guess they're independent contractors. So how do you sort of balance that, or how do you think about that in general? Like they're, who they're working for and how?
Yeah, well, the thing about this company is, which is, it's unlike, I guess, the way most CEOs think about their business is, I actually, like we're actually really focused on the needs of drivers, right?
Yeah.
And so we want them to make money.
Yeah.
So we don't do anything or any tricks to try to keep them on our platform. Like
Hmm.
unlike, the market leaders, one of the biggest complaints I always got from other drivers, and something I hated as well, was
Yeah.
sort of the gamification tactics that a lot of
Yeah.
the market leaders do. Like the way they use technology to manipulate you to stay on their platform. And it's something that everyone complains about, and that was something we want to make sure we never did.
Yeah.
We wanted to make it where you stayed on the platform because you like what we did,
Yeah.
as a company. You like working for us. We didn't want to
Yeah.
force you to stay here. So one of the things that we do is we don't, like, we don't keep them on our platform, but we also, this is something we haven't started doing yet, but we're going to start doing at some point. We really want to democratize the space, right? We
Hmm.
don't want to, like, we want the gig workers to make money. So
Yeah.
if if Coreal is slow, and we'll show you, like, there's some work over here at another
Yeah.
platform, that you can go pick up, $50, $100, go get it, and then, when Coreal is doing better, getting your market, come back and jump on the Coreal
Yeah.
platform. So, and I
Well,
think that's what
I
some of
like
the,
that because it's sort of like you understand the reality of the situation, right? Like obviously everybody knows DoorDash and Uber Eats, right? Not everyone knows Courier at this point, at least not yet, right? So it's like you want them to work for you, but if you don't have enough jobs for them, go work for DoorDash, and you're not going to like gamify it to make them work for you. You're going to send them a
right,
better job. You're going to send them a better
exactly,
order. You're going to pay them more, right? Whereas, Uber and Lyft, right? What they do, and then bigger companies, they just sort of lower your pay over time and then replace it with bonus pay. Uber makes you now do, they call it a streak bonus. You got to do 3 trips or 3 orders in a row to get paid the same as what you used to get paid, but now you have to stay on Uber and you have to accept every
yes,
job that
yes,
comes your
yes,
way. And so
yeah,
as a courier, it's like, man, this is fucking annoying. I don't like I don't like having to do this. I'd rather
yeah,
just get
yeah.
paid, straightforward. So I definitely think that that's something that I appreciate about you personally. I love to see that. I like to see that you're leaning into that at Courier. So very cool to hear.
And again, this all came from just speaking to, hundreds of drivers,
Hmm.
and hearing, what they wanted to see in a new company. And they're really rooting for us. Like,
Yeah.
they're like I mean, I think we talked about it before. Like, I mean, we're onboarding over 1,000 new drivers a month with no
Oh wow.
marketing at all. It's all word of mouth. It's just them
Yeah.
telling their friends about it. And we're about to put together, release a video of just like video testimonials of our Coreals talking about why they like Coreal, and
Hmm.
it's really inspiring to see why people are on the platform.
Yeah. Well, and I think that must feed into, you talked about earlier, the relationship that the couriers and your customers have, right? That they enjoy, they're probably doing a better job and they tip better. And it seems to be this virtuous cycle. So it sounds like you've got thousands of drivers right now that are sort of all enjoying that. How do you kind of keep continuing to scale that up as you get to tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of drivers? How do you sort of plan to keep that feel?
You mean like the overall philosophy of how
Well, I
we?
mean, I think that, like when every driver, in San Francisco, for example, right? Like if you know all 100 drivers, right? But by the time you get to 1,000 or 10,000, right, it becomes harder to, sort of propagate those values. Like I remember early when I was a driver for DoorDash or Lyft, in Orange County, and if something went wrong, they would just say, "Oh, do you mind and doing this for us?" I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, I know you, I like you." But now if Uber and Lyft asked me something like that, I'd be like, "Hell no, you got to pay me
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
do that,
yeah.
right? And so, I mean,
No,
I don't know. I'm just curious how you think about it, because that seems to be something that's helping your company stand out. So, are you just going to kind of
yeah,
keep doing what you're doing, or how do you keep, sort of like making your company stand out when it comes to like the quality of your careers, basically?
right, right. No, I think the foundation of what we are, like how we built the company, like that
Hmm.
core has to remain
Yeah.
intact as we scale, right? And I think this is one of the reasons why one of the things we're looking to do now is to perhaps um, not lean into venture funding
Yeah.
as much as as some other companies have, and move towards maybe crowdfunding and create a platform where people who believe in our philosophy,
Yeah.
for the future of work and workers' rights, and creating a space where gig workers have a lot more dignity and a lot more involvement in communication with the companies they work for. If we can do that by, just having a community of people, not just of workers and people who like the way this company operates, funding that, we could stay away from venture capital for a while, and
Yeah.
that would allow us to maintain a lot of these, sort of,
Yeah.
policies in place, and we'll be able to scale and keep that in place. I think like the live dispatch center
Hmm.
and things like
Yeah.
that are things that really make a difference, and that's something that we, you can see if you have a lot of venture funding, that's be one of the things they want to get rid of, right?
Yeah.
But these are the things that make us stand out. So these are the
For
things we want
sure.
to keep. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot, because I mean, I think this is one thing, with Uber being a good example. I think I just talked about this on my podcast with Emil Michael, who was at Uber and Travis's right hand man. I just interviewed him on the podcast. And, I think one of the questions I asked him about was, like early on with Uber, like what was their sentiment towards drivers? And I feel like early on, if like the beginning of your company, you don't really care about drivers, like once you get huge, it's too late, right? Like now Uber's doing a
Yeah.
lot to
Yeah.
try and turn the ship, but
Yeah.
it's like, they've got a huge oil tanker going,
Yeah.
fast. And it's like, it's just the company
Yeah.
culture just doesn't fit what they now want to do. Right. So they can sort of wish and hope, but like it really does matter, sort of how you start things. Right. And then if you do hopefully become huge and successful, it's like that's in the DNA of the company. So definitely, I'm glad you're at the helm of this ship with Courial. And so it sounds like what's next for Courial, looking into the crowdfunding. I think that would be really cool for our audience to participate in, and we can definitely help you get the word out and keep chatting with drivers about that. If folks want to sign up for Courial, or want to learn more, what do you guys have coming down the pipeline? What should they expect? What do you want to let them know? And then I'm also going to give you the chance to ask me one question before we sign off here, so don't forget about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they could just go to our website, or go to the Google Store or the Apple Store and download the Courier
Cool.
Partner app as a driver.
And that's
And
COURIAL.com,
mhm.
or like you said, type it in the App Store. Cool.
Yeah, it's really like Courier for all. So that's how we
Ah, okay.
came up with the name Courier. And so yeah, that's how you find us. And some of the things that we're doing that are really unique too is, like, for instance, we do things like language matching. Like,
Hmm.
so users and Couriers also tell that when they sign up, they tell us what their preferred language is. So what we
Hmm.
do is, like, if you speak Mandarin or something,
Yeah.
and we have drivers who speak Mandarin, like your order will go to those guys first if
Oh, cool.
they're in your area, and then if no one else, if they can't get it, then they'll go to the wider population. But things like language matching,
Hmm.
we do things like tip matching to help with PTO. So if drivers are sick or they can't work, they have like a little bit of a nest egg set aside for
Hmm.
them. Well, we're doing things like we're going to have two drivers from the community of gig workers all sit on our board once a year, so they could kind of help us, when we're making a decision about
Nice.
moving forward with the company. And those two Coreals will be picked by the community of Coreals. They'll get to vote
Cool.
on and get the campaign to say why they should be the guys representing the rest of the
Nice.
drivers on the Coreal board, things like that. And so we, again, the whole goal here was to make it where it was a real partnership with the
Hmm.
drivers, and the company.
Very cool. Well, I'm excited for your success, and I think we've definitely hopefully convinced quite a few folks by now to go ahead and sign up for Curl. I think that $30 an hour and moving chairs and things like that. I like that job, so we'll see if anything like that's available for me in LA. Before we sign off, I want to give you the chance to ask me one question that's burning on your mind. Anything you want? Ready? Go.
So I would ask, like, what what do you see as the next big thing in this space? Like, you've seen everything seems to pass through Harry Campbell. Like you don't start a new company in this space without reaching out to you, right?
Yeah,
Everybody,
I'm like the
everybody
Godfather,
comes,
huh?
yeah, you're like the Godfather. So what do you see as the next big thing?
Yeah, I should probably collect a little toll too when people want to pass through. That'd be a good idea for the future, like mob style. No, you're
Yeah,
right,
right.
because I mean, there's definitely waves, right? Like I got my site started 8 years ago. RideShare Guy, Uber and Lyft, and that was really big for 4 or 5 years. And then honestly, for 2 or 3 years, there was all scooter stuff. Like some of our most popular content was actually scooters and charging and reviews. And then over the past 2 years, it's been a lot more last mile delivery. So I think that it's probably impossible to predict the next kind of like wave in the gig economy and what sort of sector or vertical. But I wouldn't be surprised if something popped onto the radar in the future, whether it's like something we kind of are seeing inklings of now, or maybe it's something, kind of completely brand new. But I do feel like one of the areas that I'm kind of spending a lot of time, and, we put on a conference in LA. Actually, you spoke at it, Curbivore
Yeah,
in
yeah,
LA.
that's
You were one
cool.
of our speakers talking about Courial. And, I really think this last mile delivery sector is really interesting just because, everyone like Amazon has sort of really changed the game. Like everyone wants everything instantly now, Prime, 2 day, 1 day, 2 hour, 1 hour. So it's like the wave is like more and more things are being delivered to your house. Obviously, COVID accelerated that and then faster, right? And so it's sort of like anything and everything that can be delivered is. And so it's sort of like, I think there's a lot of interesting verticals around like things kind of coming more to you than you kind of going to them, right? And so there's obviously like the food delivery and the grocery delivery, but I think there's a bunch of other interesting verticals beyond that. We talked about like weed delivery, there's like construction delivery. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of unique things. So I think that's sort of like a sector that is really interesting to watch right now. So I guess that's kind of one thing I'm betting on. And then, I know you mentioned in your intro too, but I think like electrification and the intersection of electrification and ride hail fleets and delivery fleets. I saw Walmart today just bought 4,500 Canoe electric delivery vans. So I think that's going to be a
Yeah.
really interesting and exciting area too, is basically like getting all these vehicles. So there's like the last mile delivery piece, but then there's also like, what's the perfect vehicle for a lot of these last mile delivery things, right? Like food delivery should basically like everyone should be on an e-bike, right? Like there's no point in taking like a huge car around San Francisco to deliver, something like that. But
Hmm.
if you need like, I feel like every vertical, like groceries, you might need like more like a mini EV. Packages, you might need something that's, like compact and electric, right? But can hold 20, 30, 40, 50 packages. It's sort of like finding what the right vehicle is for the right job. So that's like kind of phase two, I feel like, in last mile delivery. So lot that has to happen still, but I think that's kind of what I'm excited about and looking forward to. So I'm sure you guys will be
Oh,
involved and at the forefront of it.
yeah, that's one thing I actually should have mentioned earlier too. That's one of the things that we do. We're really big on sustainability, so we incentivize our workers to stay on green vehicles. Like, it's
Nice.
like so they actually get to keep more of the economics if they have a green vehicle with Courier.
Very cool. Yeah. And I think that makes sense too, because obviously, like these drivers, whether you're doing rideshare or delivery, you're putting a lot of miles on your vehicle. And so I think it's kind of in your best interest too to have a more fuel efficient vehicle to go green, hybrid or even electric. So very cool to see that. Well, I'm excited for you, Herb. And, I
Thanks.
think you'll be running with this company. Hopefully, we'll have you on to chat Courial, in the future. But if not, I'm sure you'll be on here with the third company in a few years serving gig economy. But I think you got a few good years left with Courial. So definitely we'll encourage all of our listeners and all of our viewers to go check out Courial, COURIAL.com. If you're interested in driving for them, checking it out. If you're a potential partner, like an easy cater or someone that needs delivery from couriers who actually care, I think you guys would be a great option. So excited to see what's in the future. Take care.
All right, thanks for having me, Harry.